May 29th, 1944, mid-Atlantic, 500 miles west of the Azores. Kapitan Lieutenant Detlef Krankenberg commanded U-549 from 600 feet below the surface, deeper than most Allied depth charges could reach. His submarine had just sunk the escort carrier USS Block Island. Now the hunter had become the hunted. Through the hydrophones, Krankenberg's crew listened to American destroyer escorts searching above. They had survived this before. Drop to maximum depth, go silent, wait for the escorts to lose sonar contact, execute a sharp course change when they pass overhead, then endure the depth charge blasts that might crack gauges but rarely penetrated the hull at this depth. What Krankenberg didn't know was that the rules had changed. The destroyer escort USS Eugenie Elmore maintained perfect sonar contact despite the depth. Her Type 144 sonar could detect submarines at 3,000 yards. More critically, mounted on her deck sat a weapon German intelligence barely understood: the Hedgehog anti-submarine mortar. At 2100 hours, Lieutenant Commander George L. Conkey ordered his first attack. 24 projectiles launched forward in under 2 seconds. Each weighed 65 pounds and carried 35 pounds of Torpex explosive. They splashed into the Atlantic 200 yards ahead of Elmore's bow. The projectiles sank at 23.5 feet per second. Unlike depth charges that exploded at preset depths, these bombs only detonated on contact. The first salvo missed. Krankenberg likely believed he'd dodged the attack. But Elmore maintained sonar contact and turned for a second pass. 3 minutes to reload. Another 24 projectiles launched. 30 seconds after they hit the water, 3 underwater explosions echoed through Elmore's sonar. 3 direct hits. 4 minutes later, sonar detected a heavy crushing explosion. U-549 had imploded past crush depth, killing all 55 men instantly. From Elmore's second salvo to the submarine's destruction, 4.5 minutes. How did a weapon this deadly remain invisible to German intelligence until too late? By 1943, German submariners knew the danger they faced, but they possessed tactical knowledge that offered hope for survival. German doctrine centered on exploiting Allied anti-submarine warfare's fundamental weakness, the sonar blind spot. British ASDIC and American sonar transmitted sound pulses that bounced off targets and returned as echoes. At close range, typically under 200 yards, the outgoing pulse and returning echo merged. The submarine vanished from sonar exactly when accurate weapon placement mattered most. German commanders exploited this ruthlessly. As escorts passed overhead to drop depth charges, submarines executed sharp direction and speed changes. The escort, temporarily blind, dropped charges based on the submarine's last known position, often 50 to 100 yards from where it actually manoeuvred. Depth charges themselves favoured submarines. Mark 6 and Mark 7 charges sank at 8 to 9 feet per second. For a submarine at 300 feet depth, charges needed over 30 seconds to reach attack depth. During that half minute, while escorts remained blind, captains could change depth, speed, and heading. The charges detonated at preset depths, regardless of whether they hit anything, creating massive explosions that disrupted sonar for 15 minutes or longer. Statistics validated this survivability. British records show 5,174 depth charge attacks resulted in only 85.5 confirmed kills, approximately 1 in 60. Many U-boats survived hundreds of depth charges. Skill mattered. Experience mattered. A competent captain could bring his crew home. But German intelligence was tracking something disturbing. Escorts were maintaining contact longer, attacking from different angles, achieving kills without the massive explosion signatures depth charges produced. Something had changed, and the reports filtering back were fragmentary and deeply unsettling. The Hedgehog entered service with British escorts in 1942, but its impact took time to register. Initial success rates of 5% barely exceeded depth charges. Royal Navy captains used it so infrequently that the Admiralty ordered commanders to report why they chose not to fire it. Unlike depth charges with their spectacular explosions, Hedgehog misses were discouragingly silent. Projectiles simply sank without detonating. No evidence except 24 small splashes. This silence eliminated the psychological satisfaction depth charge attacks provided. But Hedgehog's technical principle addressed fundamental problems. 24 spigot mortars arranged in 4 rows of 6 fired projectiles in a circular pattern, 130 feet in diameter, 200 yards ahead of the ship. Forward firing was revolutionary. Depth charges had to be dropped from the stern after passing over the target. Hedgehog launched ahead while the submarine remained detectable. No. Blind time. Continuous sonar contact. The captain could adjust course if the submarine moved. The contact fuses were sophisticated. Each projectile survived water impact without premature detonation. Once submerged, a small propeller armed the fuse after 50 feet. Upon striking the hull, it triggered the 35-pound Torpex charge instantly. Torpex was 50% more powerful than TNT. The rapid sink rate, 23.5 feet per second, gave submarines no time to react. At 300 feet depth, projectiles arrived in 13 seconds. Compared to 30-plus seconds for depth charges, Hedgehog cut reaction time by more than half. A single direct hit typically sank a U-boat. Contact detonation meant no water cushion to dissipate force. 35 pounds of Torpex against the pressure hull ruptured it catastrophically. Commander Charles Goodeve of the Royal Navy conceived the concept in spring 1940. His team at the Directorate of Miscellaneous Weapons Development, nicknamed the Wheezers and Dodgers, redesigned everything. They placed Torpex in each projectile with contact fuses in the nose. Experiments showed flat noses reduce skipping when striking water at high velocity. Determining optimal charge weight required ingenuity. German U-boat construction remained classified, but Goodeve's team found an Italian naval magazine with photographs of German submarine production. One image showed a worker on a U-boat's pressure hull. By measuring the worker's leg length and calculating perspective distortion, engineers estimated the distance between pressure hull and outer casing, critical for determining if 35 pounds would penetrate both layers. HMS Westcott received the prototype in 1941 for trials. It performed adequately in testing, but operational results disappointed severely. No kills occurred until November 1942, despite installation on 100 ships. North Atlantic weather covered the launcher with spray, causing electrical failures. Heavy seas made accurate aim difficult. That discouraging silence when attacks missed created the greatest obstacle. In early 1943, an officer from the Directorate travelled to Londonderry and conducted retraining ship by ship. The training emphasised critical misunderstandings. First, silence was a tactical advantage. Depth charge explosions obscured sonar for 15 minutes, forcing escorts to reacquire targets. Hedgehog's silence meant continuous tracking through multiple attacks, dramatically increasing hit probability. Second, any explosion indicated direct hit, and almost certainly a kill. Unlike depth charges that might explode near submarines without fatal damage, Hedgehog only detonated on hull contact. By late 1944, statistics told a devastating story. British depth charge attacks: 5,174 attempts, 85.5 kills, 1 in 60. Hedgehog: 268 attacks, 47 kills, 1 in 5.7. By war's end, that ratio improved to 1 kill per 5 attacks, a 20-fold improvement. American forces achieved similar results. 11 of the last 16 U-boat sinkings by US destroyers involved Hedgehog. But statistics couldn't capture what it meant to be trapped 600 feet down when projectiles you couldn't hear plummeted at 23 feet per second. Oberleutnant José Helmut Fremsdorf commanded U-853 off the American coast in May 1945. He was 24. On May 5th, his submarine sank the collier SS Black Point off Rhode Island, the last merchant vessel sunk by U-boat in American waters. Destroyer escorts USS Atherton and USS Moberly converged immediately. Lieutenant Commander Louis Eislin's Atherton made sonar contact at 8:30 that evening. Atherton dropped 13 magnetic depth charges. One exploded, but the crew couldn't determine if it hit the submarine or one of many shipwrecks littering Rhode Island's waters. Fremsdorf manoeuvred through the turbulence. The submarine was detected again at 11:43 that night, 4,000 yards east, dead in the water at 100 feet. Inside U-853, temperature rose. Light bulbs shattered, gauge faces cracked, small leaks appeared in stressed fittings. The crew maintained silence. Fromsdorf knew the doctrine. Wait. For escorts to lose contact, then manoeuvre during depth charge descent. But escorts maintained perfect contact. At 2 in the morning on May 6th, Moberly executed a Hedgehog attack. Most projectiles sank silently, but 3 struck the pressure hull directly. 35-pound Torpex charges detonated on contact. If they penetrated cleanly, the crew died instantly as seawater flooded compartments under tremendous pressure. If they struck the outer casing without immediately breaching the hull, Fromsdorf and his crew endured 4 minutes knowing exactly what was coming. Small leaks becoming jets, the boat tilting steeper as it plummeted. Then the final moment, a heavy crunching explosion as the hull imploded. All 55 men died. Operation Teardrop in April and May 1945 demonstrated Allied anti-submarine capabilities' full integration. U-235 was detected just before midnight April 15th. USS Stanton's third Hedgehog attack sank it with all. 56 crew lost. 40 minutes later, Frost detected U-880. Stanton sank it at 4 in the morning. 52 more men dead. Both submarines suffered explosions far larger than 35 pounds of Torpex should produce. Hedgehog strikes likely detonated the submarine's own torpedo warheads or compressed air flasks. The pattern was unmistakable. U-boats that would have survived depth charge attacks were destroyed rapidly once Hedgehog-equipped escorts established contact. For surviving German commanders, reports painted an increasingly grim picture. Standard tactics, diving deep, going silent, sharp course changes, no longer provided survival margins. Some escorts maintained contact at previously safe depths. Some attacks came from ahead, arriving before submarines could maneuver. German intelligence struggled to compile accurate information. They knew forward-firing anti-submarine weapons existed with contact fuses, but the full tactical picture, weapon integration with improved sonar, how forward-firing eliminated blind time, how rapid sink rate compressed reaction to seconds, came too slowly. By the time German submarine command grasped the implications, the submarine force was decimated. Of 40,000 men who served in U-boats, approximately 28,000 died, over 70%. No other military branch in any nation suffered comparable casualties. Hedgehog demolished the framework that sustained U-boat doctrine, the weapon, attacked from ahead under continuous sonar observation. Projectiles arrived in seconds, not the half-minute depth charges required. Contact detonation meant a single hit was fatal. Herbert Werner, who commanded U-boats and survived, described the atmosphere in his memoir Iron Coffins. Men went to sea knowing they wouldn't return. Silent meals before departure, attacks without warning, no approaching propellers, no gradual sonar ping intensification, terrified crews most. The submarine running silent when suddenly the hull rang with impacts, followed instantly by catastrophic detonation. No time to brace, no evasion, just sudden violence and death. Grand Admiral Dönitz continued dispatching boats partially because withdrawal would free Allied resources, partially from institutional inertia, partially from desperate hope new designs might restore balance. They didn't. Returned to May 29, 1944, Captain Lieutenant Detlef Krankenberg commanded a modern submarine with trained sailors. He understood tactics refined through 4 years. He executed prescribed evasion, dive deep, go silent, wait for the blind spot, maneuver when escorts pass. Every decision was correct according to available knowledge. It wasn't enough. The tactical environment had changed in ways German commanders understood imperfectly or not at all. This is the profound irony. German U-boat crews weren't defeated because they lacked courage or skill. They lost because the tactical paradigm within which their courage and skill operated had been fundamentally altered by technological and doctrinal changes they couldn't predict or counter. The knowledge that kept them alive, exploit the blind spot, maneuver during descent time, survive through structural strength, became obsolete, transformed from survival wisdom to lethal misconception. The morning of May 29th began with Krankenberg believing his skill could bring them home. 4.5 minutes after Elmore's second, salvo entered the water, U-549 ceased to exist. Between those moments lies everything this story means, the gap between what we believe and what is true, measured in the lives of men who never learned the difference.